Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. Let me ask you directly, have you ever walked into the kitchen only to forget why you went there? Or maybe you picked up your phone, but the moment you looked at the screen, the reason completely vanished? If you have, type 1 in the comments. If you feel that never happens to you, type 2. I want to see how many of you share this very common yet deeply worrying experience. In the United States and Canada, memory loss and cognitive decline are among the top concerns for adults over 50. According to the Alzheimer's Association, more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease today, and that number is projected to nearly double by 2050. In Canada, nearly 750,000 people are affected by dementia, with a new case diagnosed every 5 minutes. These aren't just numbers, they represent parents, grandparents, neighbors, even colleagues who once seemed perfectly healthy but gradually lost their independence. But here's the truth. Memory decline is not simply a part of getting old. Modern neuroscience tells us that lifestyle choices, from how much sleep we get, to what we eat, to how we stimulate our brains, play a critical role in shaping how our memory holds up over time. Traditional medicine, on the other hand, has for centuries identified key energy points in the body that can be stimulated to nourish the brain. What fascinates me, and what I want to share with you today, is how these two perspectives, modern science and ancient practice, are not in conflict, but rather support each other. So today, we're going to begin by looking at one very specific point on the body, a point that traditional Chinese medicine calls juegu, or the bone's end point. And the juegu point, also known as the xuanzhong point, has been described in Chinese medical texts for centuries as the meeting point of marrow. Why is that significant? In classical theory, the brain is considered the sea of marrow. In other words, your bone marrow doesn't just produce blood cells, it nourishes and sustains the brain itself. So when this point is stimulated, the energy of the marrow is directed upward, supporting memory, concentration, and mental clarity. Now, let's get practical. How do we find this point on our own body? Many textbooks give a simple instruction: measure 3 inches up from the outer ankle. But think carefully. Is 3 inches the same for a 6-foot-tall Canadian hockey player and a 5-foot petite American woman? Of course not. That's why in clinical practice, the traditional method uses relative body proportions rather than fixed inches. Here's how you can do it right now. Asterisk. Sit down comfortably, pull up your pant leg, and locate the most prominent bone on the outer side of your ankle. This is the lateral malleolus. Asterisk. Place your fingers behind this bone and feel along the side of your calf. As you slide upward along the edge of the fibula, pay close attention. Asterisk. At one point, you'll notice the bone seems to end or suddenly dip inward, leaving a clear indentation. That hollow space you feel, that is the juegu point. Clinically, this method of bone measurement ensures accuracy no matter your height, weight, or build. And this accuracy matters because finding the exact location makes the difference between a placebo massage and a true therapeutic effect. Now that we know exactly where the juegu point is located, let us go deeper into its significance and function. Understanding why this point matters will help you see not only its role in traditional Chinese medicine, but also how it resonates with modern medical science. First, let's return briefly to the idea of the sea of marrow. In Chinese medicine, the marrow is not just what we understand in the West as bone marrow producing blood cells. It is also the energetic foundation that nourishes the brain, supports the spinal cord, and sustains mental clarity. When this marrow is abundant, your thoughts are sharp, your memory is strong, and your nervous system functions smoothly. When the marrow is deficient, however, the signs begin quietly: forgetfulness, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, restless sleep. Over time, these can progress into more serious issues like dementia or cognitive decline. From this perspective, the juegu point serves as a control gate. When stimulated either by pressing with your fingers, by acupuncture needles, or by massage, it activates circulation along the gallbladder meridian, a channel that intersects with the brain and spinal cord. In clinical practice, this is why juegu has been used for conditions such as memory loss, poor concentration, dizziness, insomnia, and even developmental delays in children. But you might ask, does this ancient view have any relevance to modern science? The answer is yes. Let me illustrate. A number of studies in neuroscience have shown that stimulation of peripheral nerves, especially in the lower limbs, can influence brain function. For instance, a study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience demonstrated that regular acupressure on specific points improved cognitive scores in elderly patients with mild memory impairment. Functional MRI scans revealed increased blood flow to regions of the hippocampus, the part of the brain critical for memory formation. Doesn't that sound strikingly similar to the traditional claim that pressing a point on the leg can nourish the marrow and brighten the brain? Moreover, Western medicine already accepts that the body is highly interconnected. When doctors stimulate the vagus nerve in the neck with a small implanted device, patients with epilepsy or depression often show improved brain function. If modern medicine can accept that stimulating a nerve in the body changes brain chemistry, then it is not such a leap to see how stimulating the Juegu point could also influence the central nervous system. Let's make this more concrete with examples. Imagine a retired school teacher in Canada, age 68, who finds herself increasingly forgetful. She misplaces her glasses, repeats questions to her family, and sometimes struggles to recall familiar names. Conventional tests show early signs of mild cognitive impairment. Alongside her prescribed medical care, she begins a regimen of daily acupressure on the Juegu point, 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes at night. Within weeks, she reports that her sleep is more restful, her energy steadier, and her confidence returning. Is this a cure for dementia? Of course not. But it is a tool, a supportive method that empowers her to take part in her own healing. Now let's look at another case, this time from a younger perspective. A university student in the US, only 22 years old, is overwhelmed with stress during exam season. He sleeps late, consumes endless cups of coffee, and notices that despite all his studying, his memory feels foggy. In traditional Chinese medicine, this is described as kidney essence being depleted. The very reserve energy that fuels the brain is being overdrawn. When his acupuncturist teaches him to locate and massage the Juegu point daily, combined with lifestyle changes like reducing caffeine and adding sesame seeds and walnuts to his diet, he begins to notice that his recall during exams improves. His body and brain are no longer being whipped forward on empty reserves. Instead, they are nourished. Let's pause here and invite interaction. To everyone watching, have you ever noticed that when you are extremely tired, your memory feels fuzzy and your concentration fades? If you have, type yes in the comments. If you feel you've never experienced this type, no. I'm curious to see how many of you recognize this pattern in your own lives. The Juegu point, therefore, is not just about preventing dementia decades down the line. It is about supporting memory at every stage of life. For children and teenagers, stimulation of this point can assist with healthy brain development. For adults under stress, it helps to recharge and stabilize mental clarity. For the elderly, it is a tool to preserve independence and delay decline. Now let us go into more detail about the physiological effects described in traditional medicine. According to the classical texts, pressing the Juegu point strengthens the kidneys and replenishes marrow. The kidneys, in TCM theory, are the storehouse of life's essence, what we inherit from our parents and what sustains us throughout life. When kidney essence is abundant, our bones are strong, our hair is dark, our hearing sharp, and our memory clear. When it is depleted, we age quickly. Hair turns white, bones become fragile, ears ring, memory fades. From a modern biomedical lens, this maps closely to what we call neuroendocrine function. The adrenal glands, which sit atop the kidneys, regulate stress hormones like cortisol. Chronic stress, poor sleep, and overstimulation, for example from too much caffeine or screen time, exhaust these reserves, leading to fatigue and cognitive problems. By stimulating the Juegu point, we are in effect signaling the body to restore balance in this kidney-brain connection. Clinical records from Chinese hospitals also note the use of Juegu in treating conditions such as vertigo, lower back pain, and even osteoporosis. Why osteoporosis? Because once again, marrow is central. If the marrow is depleted, bones weaken. By tonifying marrow, you not only protect memory, but also strengthen the skeletal system. This is especially relevant in North America, where osteoporosis rates are high, affecting an estimated 10 million Americans and 2 million Canadians. At this point, you might be wondering, how exactly should you press this point? The recommendation is simple yet precise. Sit comfortably, place your thumb or index finger on the hollow indentation we described earlier, and press firmly but not painfully. Apply circular pressure for about 3 minutes. If you feel a slight soreness or radiating sensation upward, you are in the right spot. Do this once or twice daily. For those more adventurous, professional acupuncture can also be considered as needling. This point is even more potent. I want to emphasize something important. Pressing juegu is not a magic bullet. It is not a replacement for medical care, nor a guarantee that you will never face memory problems. Rather, it is one piece in a larger puzzle of self-care. It complements proper nutrition, regular exercise, sufficient sleep, and mental stimulation. Think of it as adding one more tool to your toolkit, one more way to invest in your long-term cognitive health. Let's circle back to the broader picture. In the US and Canada, with aging populations and rising dementia rates, we urgently need low-cost, accessible preventive strategies. Not everyone can afford expensive medications or constant specialist care, but everyone can learn to find a point on their own leg and spend 3 minutes a day pressing it. That is the beauty of traditional wisdom. It democratizes healthcare, placing some power back into the hands of ordinary people. Finally, let me share a real case from my own clinical experience. A 5-6-year-old accountant working long hours came to me with complaints of constant forgetfulness and insomnia. His diet was poor, mostly fast food and coffee, and he rarely exercised. After just 4 weeks of daily juegu stimulation, combined with dietary adjustments including black sesame porridge twice a week, his memory tests improved, his sleep deepened, and his sense of well-being returned. He told me, "It feels like the fog in my head has lifted." So, to summarize this section, the juegu point is a vital link between marrow and brain, between ancient theory and modern science. By pressing it daily, you can support memory, reduce stress, and strengthen both mind and body. Whether you are a student cramming for exams, a middle-aged worker under pressure, or a senior wanting to keep independence, this small habit can make a big difference. Now that we've explored how the juegu point connects marrow to brain function, let's move to another essential layer, the food we eat and the lifestyle we keep. Because let's be honest, if you stimulate this point daily but continue fueling your body with poor nutrition, chronic stress, and erratic sleep, the benefits will always be limited. Healing is never one-dimensional. It thrives on synergy. So in this section, we'll talk about dietary strategies and lifestyle practices that, when combined with juegu stimulation, can significantly boost cognitive health. First, let's start with a staple that has been emphasized for centuries in Chinese medicine: black sesame seeds. You may already be familiar with sesame in breads, crackers, or tahini, but black sesame is considered the most potent variety. In TCM, black sesame nourishes the kidney and replenishes marrow, which directly links back to brain health. Modern nutrition science actually supports this. Black sesame is rich in vitamin E, lignans, and healthy fats, all known to protect neurons against oxidative stress. A study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that regular intake of sesame extract improved memory performance in older adults by reducing markers of inflammation in the brain. So how do you use it? In East Asian traditions, black sesame is roasted and ground into a fine powder, then made into porridge or mixed into rice. But for an American or Canadian kitchen, it's easy. Sprinkle ground black sesame on your oatmeal, yogurt, or smoothies. A tablespoon or 2 a day can be a brain-boosting habit. Let's broaden the picture. Another food group heavily studied in the West is omega-3 fatty acids, found abundantly in fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel. Omega-3 second are integral to the structure of brain cell membranes and are essential for synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to learn and adapt. Harvard researchers have shown that people who consume omega-3 rich diets have significantly lower risks of cognitive decline. From a TCM standpoint, these foods would be said to enrich essence and nourish yin, cooling inflammation while strengthening the marrow. To everyone watching, type yes in the comments if you eat salmon at least once a week. Type no if you rarely do. I'd like to see how many of you are already integrating this simple yet powerful brain food. Now, let's move to nuts and seeds, particularly walnuts. Have you ever noticed that the shape of a walnut resembles the human brain? Ancient physicians observed this resemblance and concluded walnuts must benefit mental function. Today, science confirms this folk intuition. Walnuts are rich in polyphenols and DHA, a type of omega-3, both linked to improved cognitive performance. A large cohort study in California even found that adults who consumed walnuts regularly scored higher on memory tests. For Canadians, adding walnuts to morning granola or using walnut oil in salads is a practical adaptation. Next, let's talk about dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, collard greens. These are powerhouses of folate, vitamin K, and antioxidants. A 2018 study in neurology found that older adults who ate one serving of leafy greens a day had brains that functioned as if they were 11 years younger compared to non-consumers. From the TCM perspective, greens clear heat and nourish blood, supporting circulation that feeds the brain. So far, we've highlighted individual foods. But remember, what damages the brain is often not what you lack, but what you consume too much of. Excess refined sugar, processed snacks, and caffeine overload are common in North America. Recall the earlier section on coffee. While 1 or 2 cups can be beneficial, dependence on high doses actually depletes energy and exhausts the kidney essence. Similarly, constant snacking on sugary foods creates insulin spikes that impair memory formation. Scientists now call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of the strong connection between insulin resistance and cognitive decline. At this point, let's pause for interaction again. Be honest. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day? Comment 1 if it's 1 cup, 2 if it's 2 cups, and 3+ if you might be overdoing it. This is not about judgment, it's about awareness. In addition to diet, lifestyle practices dramatically influence brain health. Let's start with sleep. Sleep is when the brain literally washes itself through the glymphatic system, clearing out toxic proteins like beta amyloid. Chronic sleep deprivation has been shown to accelerate the buildup of these proteins, directly raising dementia risk. In TCM, sleep is when yin and yang rebalance and the marrow regenerates. Without quality sleep, pressing juegu or eating sesame won't deliver their full potential. Another key practice is physical exercise. We now know that regular aerobic exercise increases blood flow to the hippocampus and even stimulates the growth of new neurons, a process called neurogenesis. TCM would describe this as moving qi and blood, preventing stagnation that clouds the mind. Whether it's brisk walking in the Canadian winter, cycling along a US lakeside, or practicing Tai Chi in your living room, movement is medicine. Mental exercise is equally important. Just as muscles grow with use, so does the brain. Engaging in lifelong learning, reading, solving puzzles, playing an instrument creates new synaptic connection. In TCM, this is akin to refining essence into spirit, sharpening the shen or mind. Pairing daily juegu stimulation with 20 minutes of reading or brain games multiplies the benefit. Let's not forget stress management. Chronic stress floods the brain with cortisol, which over time shrinks the hippocampus. Meditation, deep breathing, and mindfulness are proven to lower stress hormones. In fact, a 2016 meta-analysis in JAMA Internal Medicine found mindfulness meditation significantly improved memory and attention in older adults. Interestingly, acupuncture points like juegu are often used in tandem with breathing practices, further calming the nervous system. To make this practical, here's a sample daily routine. Asterisk. Morning. 5 minutes of juegu stimulation while practicing deep breathing. Asterisk. Breakfast. Oatmeal topped with ground black, sesame, and walnuts. Asterisk. Midday. A serving of leafy greens with lunch. Asterisk. Afternoon. 20 minutes of brisk walking or light exercise. Asterisk. Evening. Limit caffeine, enjoy grilled salmon once or twice a week, and wind down with reading before bed. Notice how this integrates ancient wisdom with modern science. It is not about choosing one or the other, it is about weaving them together for a holistic approach. Before we conclude this section, let me share one more story. A 70-year-old man from Toronto came to clinic complaining of forgetfulness and low energy. His daughter worried about early dementia. Alongside medical checkups, we implemented a plan. Daily juegu massage, dietary inclusion of black sesame and walnuts, reduced caffeine, and Tai Chi 3 times a week. After 3 months, not only did his memory tests improve, but he also reported feeling more confident and independent. His daughter said, "It feels like I got my dad back." That is the power of combining targeted point stimulation with nutrition and lifestyle. So to wrap up, stimulating the Juegu point is powerful, but it becomes even more effective when combined with nourishing foods like black sesame, walnuts, and omega-3 rich fish, alongside lifestyle practices such as quality sleep, exercise, mental stimulation, and stress management. Together, they form a comprehensive strategy for protecting memory and keeping the brain sharp, whether you're 25 or 75. We've talked about the Juegu point, its role in nourishing the brain, and how diet and lifestyle multiply its effect. But theory only goes so far. What truly convinces us is lived experience, real cases that show the transformation possible when these principles are applied. In this section, I want to share with you a series of case studies drawn from both traditional clinical records and modern observations to illustrate how powerful this approach can be. Let's begin with an example from an elderly patient in the United States. Mr. Johnson, age 72, had been a school principal for decades. After retiring, his wife noticed he was repeating himself more often, forgetting the names of former colleagues, and sometimes even misplacing items in the kitchen. A neuropsychological test showed mild cognitive impairment, a stage often seen as a precursor to dementia. Alongside his physician's advice for regular exercise and a Mediterranean diet, Mr. Johnson began a program of daily Juegu stimulation. His granddaughter learned how to find the point and would massage it for 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes before bedtime. Within 3 months, his sleep improved noticeably, and his wife reported fewer episodes of forgetfulness. While this does not mean the progression of dementia was cured, it provided the family with a practical tool that gave them hope and observable benefit. Now let's travel north to Canada. Mrs. Singh, a 65-year-old woman living in Vancouver, was diagnosed with osteoporosis and struggled with chronic fatigue. She had also started to forget conversations with her children, which deeply worried her. Interestingly, in traditional Chinese medicine, osteoporosis and memory issues are both seen as expressions of kidney essence deficiency. In her case, the strategy combined calcium and vitamin D supplementation recommended by her family doctor with traditional methods, Juegu point stimulation, and a daily diet that included black sesame and walnuts. After 4 months, not only did her bone density scans show slight improvement, but her family also noticed she was more energetic and socially engaged again. This case demonstrates how addressing the marrow both in the skeletal and neurological sense can have cross-cutting benefits. A younger example shows that memory issues are not confined to the elderly. Daniel, a 8-year-old graduate student in Toronto, was preparing his PhD dissertation. The long nights, excessive coffee, and high stress left him constantly fatigued, and despite all his studying, his recall was poor. He described it as, "My brain feels like cotton." His acupuncturist introduced him to the Juegu point, explaining how pressing this area could help clear the mental fog. Alongside lifestyle adjustments, cutting caffeine, adding omega-3 second, and better sleep, Daniel practiced 3 minutes of self-massage at Juegu before each study session. Within 6 weeks, he reported clearer thinking and improved memory retention, enough to make a noticeable difference in his academic performance. His story resonates with many young adults in North America today who push themselves to burnout, only to discover that small, consistent interventions restore balance. Here's another fascinating case from Chinese hospital records. A child, aged 9, diagnosed with developmental delay. His parents were desperate because he lagged behind in school and had trouble with concentration. Doctors combined standard therapies with acupuncture at the Juegu point and a nutritional plan including sesame paste and walnuts. Over 1 year, his teachers reported gradual improvement in his attention span and memory. While not a miracle cure, it provided measurable support. This suggests that Juegu's effects may extend across the lifespan, from children to seniors. Now, let me integrate modern scientific research. A clinical trial published in Frontiers in Neurology evaluated elderly patients with memory complaints. Half received standard care, while the other half received standard care plus acupressure at points including Juegu. After 12 weeks, the acupressure group scored higher on the mini mental state examination, a widely used cognitive test. Brain imaging showed increased blood perfusion in the hippocampus, confirming objective changes. This aligns with the traditional explanation that stimulating marrow-related points enhances memory. Let me pause for audience interaction. How many of you know someone, maybe a parent, grandparent, or friend, who struggles with memory issues? Type 1 in the comments if you do, type 2 if you don't. Sharing these responses helps us see that memory decline is not an isolated problem. It touches almost every family in North America. There are also cases where Juegu was combined with rehabilitation after stroke. In a hospital in Beijing, patients undergoing stroke recovery received acupuncture at Juegu to support motor function and cognitive rehabilitation. Those in the treatment group regained speech and memory faster than those who only did standard rehab. This is significant because stroke is a major cause of disability in the US and Canada, with hundreds of thousands affected every year. If a simple intervention can accelerate recovery, its potential value is enormous. Another dimension to consider is emotional health. In traditional thought, the kidneys not only govern memory, but also fear and resilience. Stimulating Juegu has been reported to calm anxiety and improve emotional stability. One patient in Montreal, a 4-5-year-old mother balancing work and family, described how her daily practice of pressing the point not only helped her remember tasks, but also reduced her sense of overwhelm. Modern research supports this too. Tactile stimulation of certain peripheral nerves influences the autonomic nervous system, lowering cortisol levels. This explains why patients often report feeling calmer after regular acupressure. But let's be balanced. There are cases where individuals tried Juegu stimulation without much benefit. For example, an 80-year-old man with advanced Alzheimer's disease showed little improvement despite daily massage. This reminds us of a crucial point. Juegu is not a cure-all. Once the brain undergoes structural degeneration, no single intervention will reverse it. However, even in such cases, families sometimes report better sleep or calmer mood, which still enhances quality of life. To tie this back to practice, think of Juegu as a supportive measure, most effective when started early and combined with lifestyle and diet. Its value lies in prevention and support, not in miraculous cures. Just like brushing your teeth daily prevents cavities, pressing Juegu daily helps preserve memory. So, in summary, case studies across ages, from children with developmental delay to stressed young adults to aging seniors, demonstrate that the Juegu point has tangible benefits when used consistently. Clinical trials support its impact on memory and blood flow to the brain. Family stories illustrate improved energy, clarity, and confidence. Yet its role must always be seen as part of a comprehensive approach: diet, sleep, exercise, mental activity, and medical care. Up until now, we've discussed three major pillars: the Juegu point and its role in nourishing the marrow-brain connection, the nutritional foundation that supports cognitive health, and the case studies showing how real people benefit from this integration. Now it's time to tie everything together into a comprehensive routine, a lifestyle plan you can apply daily, whether you are 25 or 75, whether you live in a bustling US city or a quiet Canadian town. Why is a routine important? Because memory loss and cognitive decline are not the result of a single bad habit. They are the accumulation of small stresses, poor choices, and neglect over decades. Conversely, recovery and prevention also come from small, consistent actions. 3 minutes here, 1 healthy meal there, a good night's sleep when combined. These practices create a powerful shield for your brain. Let's build this step by step. Setting the tone for the day. When you wake up, your brain is transitioning from the glymphatic cleaning system of sleep into the alertness of daytime function. This is the perfect moment to stimulate the Juegu point. Sit comfortably at the edge of your bed, place your fingers on the point, and press gently but firmly for 3 minutes. Breathe deeply as you do so. You may feel a slight soreness or tingling. This is normal. Imagine this as switching on the brain, signaling marrow energy to rise toward the head. Afterward, hydrate with a glass of warm water. In TCM, warm fluids support the stomach and spleen qi, the energy of digestion, which is crucial for nutrient absorption. From a modern perspective, this primes your metabolism and helps flush out waste from the night. Now, breakfast. Instead of rushing with coffee and a donut, aim for foods that nourish the brain. Here's a simple practical option: a bowl of oatmeal topped with ground black sesame seeds, chopped walnuts, and a few blueberries. This combines fiber, omega-3 second, antioxidants, and marrow-nourishing foods in one meal. If you enjoy eggs, add a soft-boiled egg for high-quality protein and choline, a nutrient vital for memory, sustaining energy without crashing. Many people in the US and Canada rely on coffee throughout the day to stay alert, But as we discussed earlier, over-reliance depletes reserves. Instead, limit yourself to one moderate cup in the morning, then switch to green tea or herbal teas. Green tea contains L-theanine, which calms the nervous system while maintaining focus. Herbal teas like ginseng or goji berry infusions are traditional tonics for mental clarity. Lunch should be balanced, but not heavy. Focus on leafy greens, whole grains, and lean proteins. For example, grilled salmon with quinoa and steamed spinach. This combination delivers omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, and folate, all proven to enhance brain health. TCM interprets this as enriching the blood and nourishing yin, preventing excess internal heat that clouds the mind. If possible, take a short walk after lunch. Even 10 minutes of movement enhances circulation, aids digestion, and refreshes the brain for the afternoon. Studies from the Mayo Clinic show that short walks significantly improve concentration and reduce mental fatigue, preventing the slump. By mid-afternoon, many people experience what's called the energy crash. Instead of reaching for sugar or more coffee, this is an ideal time for a second Juegu stimulation. Spend another 3 minutes pressing the point on both legs, combined with slow, steady breathing. This practice stabilizes your energy, calms stress, and provides a gentle lift in clarity without the side effects of caffeine. As a snack, consider a handful of mixed nuts, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, or sliced apple with natural peanut butter. These foods stabilize blood sugar and provide sustained energy for the brain. This is also a great time for mental exercise. Dedicate 20 minutes to reading, solving puzzles, or practicing a hobby like playing an instrument. Neuroscientists emphasize the concept of cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to adapt and compensate for damage. Building this reserve requires continual learning. In TCM terms, this is the refinement of Shen, the spirit of the mind. Evening down, preparing for restoration. Dinner should be lighter than lunch. Focus on vegetables, legumes, and a moderate portion of protein. For instance, lentil soup with kale, or grilled chicken with roasted root vegetables. Avoid excessive heavy meats, fried foods, or late-night snacking, as these burden the digestive system and interfere with sleep. After dinner, spend time with loved ones. Social interaction is one of the most powerful protectors against cognitive decline. In North America, isolation is a significant risk factor for dementia, especially among seniors. Sharing conversation, laughter, and emotional connection strengthens the brain just as much as nutrients or acupoints do. Before bed, repeat Juegu stimulation for 3 minutes. This time, focus on calming the mind rather than energizing it. Breathe deeply, allow your thoughts to settle, and prepare for sleep. If desired, drink a small cup of warm milk or chamomile tea, both known to improve sleep quality. The silent healer. We cannot emphasize enough, sleep is the foundation of memory. During deep sleep, the brain consolidates learning and clears away toxins. Chronic sleep deprivation doubles the risk of Alzheimer's disease. In TCM, the night is when yin energy nourishes the body and marrow regenerates. Without sufficient rest, even the best diet and acupressure cannot fully protect your memory. Aim for 7-8 hours, with consistent sleep and wake times. Weekly and seasonal additions. Asterisk Tai Chi or yoga, practiced 2 or 3 times a week. These disciplines combine movement, balance, and breath, enhancing both chi flow and neurological health. Asterisk community activities. Join a book club, volunteer, or attend local cultural events. In studies, social engagement is as protective against dementia as physical exercise. Asterisk seasonal eating. In TCM, seasonal foods support balance. In winter, warm soups with black beans and sesame. In summer, cooling foods like cucumber and watermelon. This aligns with the body's natural rhythm.